It's 3 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling. Your phone is face down beside you because you promised yourself you wouldn't check it. But the real answer to why you're awake is far stranger than stress, or screens, or too much coffee. Your ancestors were awake at this exact hour too, every night, for almost all of human history. Not because something was wrong with them, because something was working exactly as designed. Somewhere around 2 a.m., your body used to expect a pause, a quiet, wakeful stretch in the middle of the night, wedged between two separate sleeps. Historian Roger Ekirch spent years digging through diaries, court records, and medical texts from before the industrial era, and he found the same phrase again and again: first sleep and second sleep. People went to bed a couple of hours after sunset, slept for 3 or 4 hours, woke naturally in the dead of night, stayed up for an hour or two, and then slept again until dawn. What did they do in that gap? They prayed. They had sex. They talked to their spouse in the dark. They tended the fire. Some visited neighbors. Some just lay there, thinking, the way you do at 3 a.m. now. Except they weren't fighting it. It was expected. It had a name. Ekirch even found bedtime prayers written specifically for the waking hour between sleeps, as if the culture had built a ritual around something your body still tries to do, quietly, every single night. Ekirch found something else buried in those old records. The waking hour wasn't just tolerated, it was trusted. Physicians of the time believed the body needed that break to properly digest the first sleep, the way you'd trust a pause between two courses of a meal. Servants used it to do quiet chores. Poets used it to write. One French physician even recommended it as the best time for couples to conceive a child, on the theory that the mind was calmest and clearest in that dark, unhurried hour. None of this reads like insomnia. It reads like a scheduled appointment with your own thoughts. Then, the light bulb arrived, and the gap disappeared. Artificial light didn't just let people stay up later. It collapsed two sleeps into one. It told the body a single, uninterrupted 8 hours was the only correct way to rest, and anything else was a disorder. Doctors started prescribing sleeping pills for the very thing your great-great-grandparents did on purpose. You didn't lose the ability to sleep through the night. You lost permission to wake up in the middle of it without panicking. Think about that shift for a moment. It took only a few decades. A pattern that had held for thousands of years, documented across dozens of languages and cultures, was erased almost entirely by a single invention. Not because your biology changed, it didn't have time to. Only your environment did. But segmented sleep is only half the story. The stranger half is what happens before you even lie down. Psychiatrist Thomas Ware ran an experiment in the 1990s that almost nobody has heard of. He took a group of people and put them in near total darkness for 14 hours a day. No clocks, no artificial cues, nothing to do but sit in the dark, the way a long winter night would have forced your ancestors to. He wasn't trying to prove anything about history. He was studying seasonal mood changes. The sleep pattern was a surprise he stumbled into. At first, his subjects just slept. Long, heavy, almost desperate sleep, as if paying off a debt. But within weeks, without anyone telling them to, their sleep split in two, almost exactly matching Ekirch's historical record. First sleep, a quiet waking window. Second sleep. Nobody had described this pattern to them. Nobody had suggested it. Their bodies simply found it, the moment the modern world's light was taken away. And in the waking hour between the two sleeps, Ware's subjects described something unexpected. A strange, drifting calm. Some called it meditative. A few said it felt like the most peaceful hour of their day. Blood tests showed their prolactin levels, a hormone linked to feelings of contentment, spiked during that hour, at levels usually only seen in deep relaxation or right after sex. Their brains, left alone in the dark long enough, built a small, private sanctuary in the middle of the night. Modern insomnia might not be a malfunction. It might be a memory with nowhere to go. So if segmented sleep was normal, why does almost nobody do it now? Not even the last hunter-gatherer society still living without electricity. This is where the story gets even stranger. In 2015, sleep researcher Jerome Siegel led a team studying 3 pre-industrial groups: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, the Tsimane of Bolivia, none of them exposed to electric light, all of them living roughly the way humans lived for most of history. Siegel expected to find segmented sleep everywhere. He found almost none of it. These groups slept in a single block, average of about 6.5 hours, and this is the part that should genuinely surprise you. They reported almost no insomnia at all, less than 2%, compared to rates as high as 30% in industrialized countries. What they did have was something you don't. Their body temperature dropped for hours before bed, tracking the natural cooling of the evening air because there was no heater fighting against it. Their bodies were reading the world directly, the way a thermostat reads a room, instead of getting mixed signals from central heating and glowing screens at once. They almost never napped, even though you'd expect people without alarm clocks to nap constantly. And they didn't go to bed the moment it got dark. They stayed up for hours around the fire first, in low, flickering, reddish light that your ancestors would recognize instantly and your bedroom lamp completely fails to imitate. Anthropologists who spent time with the Hadza noted that firelight conversation after dark wasn't idle chatter. It was where stories got told, disputes got settled, and social bonds got repaired. A nightly ritual your evening scrolling has quietly replaced with something that looks similar and functions nothing alike. 2 studies, 2 different pictures of ancient sleep. How can both be true? They're describing 2 different pressures. Ekirch's Europeans were sleeping indoors, isolated from real threats, free to let their sleep fracture into something almost leisurely. Siegel's foragers were sleeping in the open, or close to it, where a fractured night meant a longer window of vulnerability. Your body carries the instructions for both. It can consolidate sleep tightly when danger is real. It can loosen and drift when it isn't. What it cannot do is figure out which situation you're actually in, because the one thing both ancient environments shared, and yours doesn't, is honest darkness and an honest fire. Your bedroom is neither. It's not dark enough to trigger deep, consolidated sleep, and it's not variable enough to let you drift into the old rhythm on purpose. Your phone screen at 11 p.m. is roughly the brightness of a cloudy midday sky, as far as your brain's ancient light-sensing cells are concerned. You are asking a system built for firelight and total darkness to interpret a glowing rectangle held 8 inches from your face, and then you are surprised when it gets confused. There's a strange irony hiding in all of this. You probably think of insomnia as a modern problem caused by modern stress, but by nearly every measure, the people living closest to the ancient pattern report almost none of it. It's not the absence of stress that protects them. Hunting, gathering, and surviving without modern medicine is not a stress-free existence by any definition. What protects them is the absence of confusion. Their environment tells one consistent story from sunset to sunrise. Yours tells 3 or 4 contradictory ones before you've even brushed your teeth. So which pattern is really natural? The fractured European nights Ekirch documented, or the single consolidated block Siegel found in the Hadza and the San? The honest answer is that both are natural, and the difference between them says something almost uncomfortable about safety. Segmented sleep, it turns out, might be a small luxury, a sign the world was safe enough, quiet enough, dark enough that a mind could afford to let go of vigilance for an hour in the middle of the night and simply drift. Consolidated sleep, tight and efficient, might be the version your body reaches for when it isn't sure it can afford that luxury at all. Which raises an uncomfortable question about your own 3 a.m. waking. Is your mind drifting, the way Ware's subjects drifted? Or is it on guard, running through tomorrow's problems like a sentry, checking a perimeter that doesn't actually exist anymore? Here's the part that should actually change how you feel about your worst nights. When you wake at 3 a.m. and your mind starts running quietly through your day, your worries, your plans, you are not broken. You are doing something your species did on purpose, in the dark, for most of its existence. The panic you feel about being awake is newer than the waking itself. The waking is ancient. The panic is the industrial add-on. That doesn't mean you should throw out your mattress and start sleeping in 2 shifts by candlelight. Your calendar doesn't care what your ancestors did. Your job doesn't grant an exception for prolactin spikes at 3 a.m., but there are smaller, quieter adjustments hiding inside this research, ones that don't require rearranging your entire life. Dim your lights an hour or 2 before bed, instead of running them at full brightness until the moment you switch them off. Let your bedroom actually get cold, the way an evening used to cool on its own. And if you do wake in the night, resist the urge to reach for the one thing guaranteed to convince your brain it's midday, that glowing rectangle on the nightstand. Ware's subjects didn't reach for anything. They just sat in the dark and let the feeling arrive on its own. It does mean the next time you're staring at that ceiling, you might ask a different question. Not, why can't I sleep? But, what would I do with this hour if I weren't afraid of it? Because for most of human history, that hour had a use. It had prayers written down by people who trusted the dark enough to schedule something inside it. It had quiet conversation between 2 people who weren't going anywhere. It had the specific, ordinary peace of being awake with nothing you were supposed to be doing about it. No notification waiting, no feed refreshing, nothing but your own thoughts and the sound of a house settling around you. Somewhere between the fire your ancestors sat around and the phone you're tempted to check right now, something got lost. Not your ability to sleep, your permission to be quietly, peacefully awake. Because for most of human history, that hour had a use. It had prayers, it had quiet conversation, it had the specific, ordinary peace of being awake with nothing you were supposed to be doing about it. Tonight, when you wake at 3 a.m., your phone will be face down beside you, and you'll be tempted to check it. But the real answer to what to do next isn't on that screen. It's the same answer your ancestors reached for in the dark, thousands of nights before you were born. Stay still, stay quiet, and let the second sleep come.